Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome. I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today is a mindfulness coach, certified mediation leader, a retired attorney, and ultramarathoner. She is the best-selling author of a running and mental health memoir, Depression Hates a Moving Target: How Running with My Dog Brought Me Back from the Brink. She lives in Central Ohio with her husband, Ed, and their yellow Labrador retriever, Scarlet. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Nita Sweeney.
Thank you so much, Julia. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Our opening question on Authors Over 50 is always, what took you so long to write your first book?
Well, my first book was actually written and published when I was in second grade, but it's just... It was a knockoff of another book, and it's called Shishak the Wild Stallion. I still have the copy someplace. But to get published, because I think that's actually the question, it took a long time, partly because of my mental health issues. I have chronic depression, I'm bipolar, and I struggled with how do you write a book, which a lot of us do. And I went down a lot of side paths. And then ultimately I found a writing teacher named Natalie Goldberg, who I still consider my teacher. And I followed her for a long time while continuing to write, but I just didn't find a book. So I've written, I think I have 10 books in the drawer. But until this first book, Depression Hates a Moving Target, kind of came where my life evolved. I had started running. I was able to get off some of the medications that I was on. They helped me stay alive, but they also made it hard for me to concentrate and just made it difficult for me to write in the way you have to complete a book. So the timing of that with the story of that, how running helped my mental health, the timing in the world where people were starting to really see that mental health issues were important and a thing. And my publisher was relatively new and willing to take some risks. So willing to take a risk on an unknown person like me. So all of those things came together at the right time. And 2019 happened to be that right time for me. I had pitched other books, but this is the one that landed with Mango and Brenda Knight, and I'm forever grateful. Forever grateful. It completely changed my life.
Well, so many people these days are suffering from depression. Have we always, or is this new to our society?
Well, I think the pandemic did a thing, okay? I do believe that there has been a lot of undiagnosed depression, and people medicate it a lot of ways, sometimes with overworking, sometimes with alcohol, food, sometimes with exercise. I mean, you can over-medicate with exercise too. And so I know that it has always been, at least it's always been a thing in my family. I have it on both sides of my family. We have people with different mental health issues. But the pandemic just put it at the fore. Everybody was suddenly having to deal with different circumstances that they just weren't used to, didn't see it coming, had no time to prepare. And, the resources weren't there in that number that were needed. So I think it has always been a thing. And I think that the pandemic just turned a huge spotlight on it.
Well, Nita, you are obviously a dog lover as I am, and I have two labs myself. Tell us more about the inspiration for this book because I love the title, Depression Hates a Moving Target.
Well, the title, let me go back. Let me start to talk about dogs first. So the dog that's in the book was published in 2019 and it, took a while to write. So unfortunately, Mr. Dog, Morgan, the co-star in the book, has gone to the great dog park in the sky. But he was just the best dog. Now, everybody says that their dog is the best dog, but Morgan was just the best dog. He, a yellow lab, so well behaved from the outset. I think he ate one pillow in 16 years. I mean, that was just, yeah, I think he like shredded my stepson's pillow when he was at his house, and that was it. And he had this gait that was just steady. He just would trot along. And so when I got brave enough to go down into this ravine so no one could see me, to try to run at, I think I was 49, I took him along because he was my best bud. My husband I didn't even tell my husband, and my husband's my best bud too, but I didn't even tell my husband. I just took the dog and leashed him up, and they're just like that, the unconditional love. And so he was my training partner. Anytime that I wasn't running, I ended up joining a big group because I needed the support, the structure when I wanted to do longer races. But before that, and anytime I was running in my neighborhood or nearby, shorter miles, he would be there, and he just was always there for me, always. You look into those eyes, and they're evolutionarily developed to make our hearts melt. There's science behind why we look into their eyes, and it just makes our hearts melt. So I could go on. I'm sorry, I'm just going on and on about the dog, but I just love my dogs. And now we have Scarlet, the pupperina, who is so bad that she has her own hashtag, the 99% good dog. And she eats everything. She's eaten so many pillows and towels and washcloths and socks and wallets, 2 chairs. I mean, she's just ridiculous. And yes, we're probably horrible parents too. But she's a great dog, but she's just the opposite of Morgan. She's just a scoundrel. Also a yellow lab, but a scoundrel.
They really do have totally different personalities, just like people.
Yes, they do. Those two especially. And they look so much alike, but they're completely different.
Well, I ran a marathon when I turned 60. It was on my bucket list, and it almost killed me. I can't believe you're an ultra marathoner. Does that mean over 100 miles?
Oh, no. That means 26.3 or more. And the ultra I did was 31 miles. So it's only 6 more miles on what you did.
The point two almost killed me. So no, I don't think I could add any more miles.
Well, congratulations to you, because we're in, I think, less than 1% of the population have run marathons. And there's a lot of overlap in the tenacity that it takes to run a marathon and the tenacity it takes to write and publish books. So I see great connection in it, but it's not for everyone. And I know that. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and to you also.
Thank you.
Well, once you wrote this first book, how did you proceed? Did you search for an agent, decide to use a hybrid, a small press, or did you self-publish?
So when I had the idea for the book, I was talking with a friend of mine who's a writing coach, Tanya Cassell, and I had done my years of trying to publish other books. I had one book that was about my father, which I still hope to get published, and had been rejected, had tried agents, had done the whole thing. And so I was having this conversation with her, and I said, I'm going to self-publish this one. I just feel like this is important and I want to get it out in the world. And she said, she's British, and I'll butcher her accent, but she said, Nita, if what you wanted was a book with your name on it, you would have done that years ago. And it was a reality check, because the truth was I wanted the gold star of someone besides me saying this book was worthy. And I know that's a bit ridiculous because all books are worthy. And well, maybe not all books, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with indie publishing, with self-publishing, with hybrid publishing. There's no wrong way to get a good book into the world. And yet she had known me at that point, I think, for 25 years and had seen me struggle to try to write, had been in Taos with me at those workshops, and she knew what I really wanted. And so we came up with a plan, 3-part plan. A, try to get an agent. So pitch agents as long as I could stand it, essentially. And then try to find a publisher that didn't require an agent and do that. That's part B, as long as I could stand it. And then C would be look at self-publishing, hybrid, those other options where I'm the guardian at the gate. And so that's what we did. And I always say that that what ended up happening is I got a contract with it's an indie publisher, but they're traditional. It's not self. It's a small press, Mango Publishing Group in Florida. And Brenda Knight is she was the acquisitions editor at the time, and now she's the associate publisher. And I always say that I had gone through A, and I was at, if each of those sections had 100 points on the continuum, I was at B99, ready to, I was already researching and had talked to some different people, had explored different hybrid options, some other people who'd done complete self-publishing. And then I got, I just got this email from her asking for all kinds of things. So the first thing that happened was in March, we had a phone call, which who has a phone call with an editor, but that's just who she is. So we had this phone call. And at the time I was publishing a newsletter that was for writers in Central Ohio called Right Now Columbus. And I had, I think I had 2,000 subscribers. So she saw that even though my audience for Depression Hates a Moving Target would not be writers, she saw that I knew how to find followers. And as much as we don't want that to be true, that is so important. And it's not even that I had to have followers, I had to know how to get them. And so in August, when we really started talking seriously, she said, you've got 2 weeks. How fast can you get as many followers as possible? And so I started blogging every day, retweeting a bunch of other people's things, asking all my friends and family to retweet or or share or story, whatever they could, anything I posted. And my impressions just went through the roof, because that's what happens when you get engaged, especially when you engage after you haven't been engaged for a while. You get a lot of engagement. And so that showed her 2 things. One, it showed her, again, that I knew how to do that. But 2, that I knew how, maybe follow directions isn't quite the right term, but that I was willing to play along, that I was a team player, because you're developing a relationship with a publisher. And they don't want somebody who's going to say, I don't really feel like doing that, or that's not something I can do, or unless there's ethical issues involved. And so that's how it worked. And then I got this email. I still have a screenshot that says, yes, we want to move forward and publish your book. And oh my gosh, I screamed, I jumped up and down, I cried, because it just felt like it had been so long trying to write first, to figure out even what is a book, and then how to write a book, and then how to structure a book, and then how to write a proposal. Oh my gosh, I did have to write a proposal. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Hope to never do that again, but who knows. So yeah, that was it, and here we are.
Well, it's very exciting when you get that publisher to take you on, and because she saw that you were committed and motivated.
Well, and she also saw that the topic was timely. And that matters too. I'm not suggesting people write to market unless you're that kind of person. If you're the kind of person that can write to market, go for it. But the timing, I think, was really important, because it's a memoir, and memoirs aren't terribly popular with most presses. There are presses that publish them, but so it was the topic that really caught her eye.
Well, I know you've written a second book now. How did writing your first book change your process of writing, or did it?
I was able to write more quickly. Well, it may not write, but structure more quickly and turn it around more quickly. I could see what points I needed, how many deadlines I needed. I'm a highly adaptable person, which basically means squirrel. So I needed deadlines set by other people to keep me on task. I hired it's that same team, Tandy Cassell and Sean Murphy that I mentioned before. I hired Sean because he's a Zen master and excellent. They're both excellent book coaches. And so I had the deadline first to send him the manuscript, and then to get it back from him, and then eventually, to get it to her, to Brenda. And so knowing that about myself really, really helped. It was also a very different book. It's a prescriptive nonfiction as opposed to memoir. And so while it's very memoir-ish, because I'll always be a memoirist at heart, I needed a lot of research. And so I needed the time to do that. And I think that actually helped because I had, okay, I've read this book. Now let's make these notes, and then this book and these notes. And so again, that structure kind of pulled me through. Otherwise, the book still wouldn't be done. I just am a very easily distractible person because there's so much. The world is so interesting.
Well, I'm the same way. I love a deadline because that forces me to meet it, because I do want to check all the boxes and to get everything done that I'm supposed to. I'm a rule follower, I guess, but
that's okay. That's great, actually.
I like deadlines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just help me. And once I realized that they were what I needed, anytime my editor asks me to do anything, even the smallest thing, I will email back and say, when's my deadline? And then she'll send me back a deadline because she knows I just work better to deadlines. Otherwise, it'll be 6 months and she'll never, hear anything. So if you're that, I think that's the thing I've learned too, is to trust my process. We go to these conferences, we go on social media, we listen to YouTube about, oh, you have to do it this way. Oh, even Natalie. I mean, I studied with her for years. She's a best-selling author. Her first book, Writing Down the Bones, has been translated into, more than 70 languages. And even that process isn't quite my process. And so being able to accept that my process works for me has really, really helped.
And I do think we have to find what works for us. We're all different, and sometimes some of those standard checklists can work from us and for us, but sometimes not. And speaking of those processes, we writers like to write. We don't like to promote ourselves or market ourselves. And I was in public relations and marketing all my career, but it's different when you're promoting yourself. So have you found publicity that's worked, or maybe that didn't work for you?
Well, come to say of it, podcasts have been the thing that has worked the best. I'm too scattered to have my own podcast. It's just not something that I would be able to keep together. But I have found that you can put me on nearly any podcast and I can figure out a way to talk about mental health. Everybody loves dogs. How movement can fit into your life. I just was recently on a podcast about mindfulness in leadership. And that was fantastic because we talked about the benefits of how managers, and any kind of leader really, but it was corporate setting, how managers can be more effective themselves if they learn to stay in the moment. And of course, they want their staff to do that too. But because those are my big things, is wellness or mental health, movement, and then meditation, and of course writing too. But that kind of balance of having those different things all going on, maybe not at the same time, but if I don't have one of those three things at any given time, I feel very unbalanced. And that you can talk about that pretty much on any podcast. So the podcasts have been this. The other thing is an email newsletter. You got to have an email. If you don't have an email newsletter yet, just sign up for some free account and add your mom, your sister, and your cousin, and there you go. You have an email list.
Well, I think staying in the moment is certainly one of the detriments of our society. I think we're all into Instagram shots and just showing what we're doing instead of really getting into being rested ourselves or enjoying the world around us. So I think that's definitely a problem in today's society.
Yeah, and also the authenticity issue. Because what I know that what I post, I'm looking for, I take 10 shots and I pull the best one. I remember I went to recently, my most recent book, Make Every Move a Meditation, was selected for the Ohioana Book Festival. And I'd been corresponding with another Ohio author for a while. And we got there and we didn't recognize each other because we look so different on social media.
Yes, we put a lot of filters on for sure.
Yes, yes.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the passages you've brought to share today and then read from your book so we can hear your tone and voice.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with a little bit from Depression Hates a Moving Target, and I like to just read the opening section just to kind of give people a flavor of where it all started. And this is just the beginning. There actually is a prologue, which is very short, but I'm going to read starting with chapter 1 because it sort of shows you where I came from. And this is not only where I came from as a runner, but also as a writer. So I'll read this book. This is from chapter 1, Off the Sofa and Into the Ravine. 5 months before my 49th birthday, I slouched on the sofa in my pajamas, squinting at my laptop screen. A high school friend's social media post read, "Call me crazy, but this running is getting to be fun." I remembered Kim riding horses in high school, but neither of us had been athletes then, and we certainly weren't now. I read on. She had begun an interval training plan to run 3 times a week. The website suggested alternating 60 seconds of jogging with 90 seconds of walking for a total of 20 minutes. 60 seconds sounded almost possible. But depression clung to me like a shroud. It was noon on a weekday. As usual, I'd just gotten up and hadn't showered in days. The simple act of walking Morgan, our yellow Labrador, around the block often proved too difficult. A few minutes into browsing Kim's interval running schedule, an extra long burst of hiccups reduced me to sobs. I cried until they passed, closed the laptop, and went back to bed. Still, her running posts nestled like seeds in the back of my consciousness. Later that week, Kim posted, "Week 1 finished." Infected by her glee, I remembered the pleasure I'd had when I'd run short distances decades before. A seed sprouted. Around the same time, Fiona, a writer friend from London, also took up running. She loved buying trainers, sneakers. Her emails reminded me of my first trip to a running store decades earlier when I'd scoffed at the price tags to hide being intimidated by the options. Fiona also talked about how running felt and the glow after. She's no youngster. She is younger than me, but she's no youngster. The seed grew. On one March weekday, inspired by the daffodils bursting through the soil of winter flower beds, I returned to the running website. "This might kill you," came the familiar voice in my head. I recalled Kim and Fiona's smiles. 60 seconds of jogging hadn't killed them. A wise part of my mind thought exercise might energize me, while a deep animal instinct tried to protect me by scoffing. "You're old and fat. People will make fun of you, and you'll die of heart failure." Most people have these competing voices. Mine are just louder. Drawing strength from the flying and floating sensations of my dreams, I wrestled tube socks over my flabby calves, sweatpants across my wide hips, a long-sleeved t-shirt and hoodie over my thick belly, and a pair of trail shoes, the closest thing to running shoes I had, onto my swollen feet. Ed, my husband, was at work, so he couldn't see my unwieldy outfit. Morgan circled and nearly knocked me down when I opened the closet where we kept his leash. I would need his support. I picked up a digital kitchen timer and went outside. And that's kind of how it began. I actually went, I didn't just start at my door. I actually went into a hidden ravine where the houses, it's a floodplain and the houses are set way up, and went there because it was nobody was even home, but I was so afraid of what people would think. And I'm so over that now, but it took time. So
Oh,
yeah,
I
that's the
love
first
that
book.
opening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, depression is a moving target. And it's a phrase that my friends and I use to remind each other that if we just get moving, it's not a cure, but sometimes just moving can make a huge difference. And it did for me.
I
So
think exercise really helps us in so many ways. I've heard so many authors talking about they solved a plot hole, just getting out and walking or running or biking, and I think it really just stirs those endorphins in our mind.
it does a lot of things. The alone time, the sense of accomplishment. I said I was going to go a mile and I went a mile. I actually have a physical training schedule that's taped to the side of one of my bookcases, and coming back and making a little check mark that I did what I said I was going to do. There's just so many. And now I have a community too, because I did join that running group, and that has made a huge difference. We run together, which if I have a moment, I could read a real short passage from the other book that is actually in when I'm in the running group. So this is Make Every Move a Meditation, which is my most recent book. And as I said, it's prescriptive nonfiction. So it's much more of a how-to, but I'm a memoirist. And so it has a lot of memoir, as you'll see. And here's the introduction. On a bright Saturday morning, as I ran along the Olentangy Trail with 3 other members of our PACE group, the conversation turned to meditation. It might as easily have turned to which Central Ohio restaurant we would go to for breakfast, upcoming races, or last week's Buckeye football game. Instead, a woman asked how I practice. I do sitting meditation, I said, but I also meditate while I run. I was meditating just now. That's a thing? Another woman asked. It is for me, I explained. Today I'm noticing my left foot. When my mind wanders, I gently bring it back. The whole run? Most of it. How long can you think about your foot? Isn't that boring? I don't think about my foot. I experience it. I notice the sensation of my foot hitting the ground and observe any changes. I pay attention to how my foot feels in my shoe. I sense if it hits harder than my right. When my mind wanders, I count my footfalls. When I pay close attention, it's not boring at all. Silence. Eventually, someone brought up breakfast. But a few weeks later, the woman who initially asked approached me. I tried your left foot meditation. It's interesting. I rarely pay attention to my feet. Since I tried it, I feel more relaxed when I run. She thanked me. That brief conversation led to this book. The woman, like many other people I've talked to, found the notion of movement meditation odd but appealing. Movement meditation was worth exploring and explaining. Of course, I didn't create movement meditation. Centuries-old traditions embrace it. But for that woman, it was new. What I didn't tell my sister runner was that this path of noticing, whether it be her left foot, her breath, or her thinking, is about much more than physical activity. Meditation might make her a better runner, or make someone else a better golfer, tennis player, dancer, gymnast, or weightlifter. But more importantly, consistent practice can lead to insight, the kind that can enhance daily life. It might even free her from suffering, a pain she might not even know she has. And if one person finds that, it will be worth my effort. That's the intro to this one.
That's great.
Thank you for letting me read. People like to be read too, and I like to read. So
Yes. And I hear from a lot of readers that that's how they choose their next book, is listening to this podcast and listening to the author read.
well, that's fantastic.
What do you think writing success looks like to you personally?
Oh, wow. It depends on the day. Boy, some days the Amazon stats are all that matters and those little orange badges. And then once in a while, I will get an email response, usually from somebody on my newsletter, or sometimes it's random. It'll be, some direct message on social. And they'll say, I was having a really rough time and I picked up one of your books and just read a little bit, and I'm not alone. I feel like I can go on. I'm not alone. And that you can't put a price tag on that. You can't sell enough books for that. I mean, that's just it. So that touching people's lives, And I'll be honest, that's not why I started writing. I just am a writer. I love putting words on the page. I love it being, elbow deep in punctuation and words and letters and such. But when somebody reaches out, I mean, if they relate to my writing, usually I'm happy sad, because that means they've touched a dark place, they've touched the darkness. But if my existence, still being on the planet after having been through some pretty serious mental health bouts, I mean, I came really close to ending my life. If sharing that and having somebody just feel inspired by that, to just go on one more day and to try running, try meditating, try writing, whatever that is, that's gold. That's gold.
It really is. That's very significant, to touch someone else and to help them in even a small way. That's very significant. Yeah, it's been my favorite part of writing my first book, especially because I am an adopted child from a maternity home in New Orleans, and I had so many adoptees and birth parents and adoptive parents reach out to me and share their stories. And that was such an honor to hear from that whole community.
Yeah, you shared a really important story with that book. It's, and that's, it's amazing how those connections mean so much to people. And we don't necessarily, I mean, sometimes they'll be in the back of my head when I'm writing, but mostly I just had one other high school friend in the back of my head. I was just writing to this one person. But it's been amazing how, especially the first book, the second book's still new enough that it may take some time to get legs, but the first book it's just sort of amazing how many people have reached out to me and how powerful that has been for me.
It is, because we say that writing, especially memoir, is therapy for ourselves as well.
It definitely is.
Well, Nita, as always, our last interview question is, our authors over 50 are quite unique. Do you have advice for writers 50 and above?
Embrace your inner unicorn. I would say just remember that age is wisdom. We've been through a lot. We have survived a lot. And I don't know. I have some very young friends that are poets and other writers, and I think those hard knocks I've had make me more resilient. So just hang in there and don't give up. It's just never too late to chase your dreams. It's never too late to chase your dreams.
I think that is very wise advice. And I always say that that's what writing a book and life's sweetest third is all about. So we just appreciate your wisdom today and how you're motivating others and being of such help to so many in our society today who are suffering with depression or other mental illnesses. So thank you. And we're now excited to say you're one of our authors over 50.
Thank you. It's a great club to be in. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday, when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's DAILY, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.